Welcome to the deep dive. Let's just jump right in with a thought that might really stop you in your tracks. If you're lucky enough to live to 80, your entire human lifespan, it's just about 4,000 weeks.
Wow.
That's it. 4,000 weeks.
That really puts things in perspective, doesn't it?
It's an incredibly short span when you truly think about it.
It absolutely reframes everything, yeah. Our 4,000 weeks are barely a cosmic blink.
Right.
Even someone like Jean Calment, the record holder for longevity, lived to 122. Right. She only got around 6,400 weeks. It just underscores how precious and finite our time really is.
And today, we're taking a deep dive into exactly that idea. We're exploring Oliver Burkeman's really thought-provoking book, 4,000 Weeks, Time and How to Use It.
Great book.
You, our listener, brought this fascinating material to us, and our mission today is, to unpack its core ideas. We want to show you why our modern, often kind of relentless obsession with time management, why it often leaves us feeling more stressed, actually.
Yeah, less fulfilled, not the other way around.
Exactly.
It really is a profound paradox, isn't it? We live in an era where we're just absolutely deluged with advice on living the fully optimized life.
Oh, completely.
I mean, think about it. Books promising extreme productivity, countless life hacks, apps designed to maximize, everything. Your workday, your sleep.
Even those meal replacement drinks just to save a few minutes on dinner, it's everywhere.
Right.
You'd think with dishwashers, microwaves, jet engines, time would suddenly feel boundless. But what's our actual experience?
It's the opposite.
Exactly. Life feels accelerated, and we're all just increasingly impatient.
It's true. It's somehow more aggravating waiting 2 minutes for a microwave than it ever was waiting 2 hours for an oven.
So why? Why does this relentless effort to control time seem to backfire so spectacularly? Why does it make things worse, not better?
Well, that's what we're going to explore today based on the insights you shared with us. And to really understand this modern conundrum, we kind of have to look back. Historically, before the Industrial Revolution really took hold, time was just the medium life unfolded in. It wasn't separate. It was just the fabric of existence, sort of.
Right. Just there.
But then, with factories rising in the 1700s, like those run by the iron magnate Ambrose Crowley, and needing to coordinate hundreds of people working fixed hours, time started being treated differently. It became a resource.
Ah, like coal or iron.
Exactly. Something to be bought, sold, used efficiently. Crowley himself famously called loitering workers thieves.
Thieves, wow.
Yeah, thieves stealing from the conveyor belt of time. That's how he saw it.
And that's where the anxiety really started to brew, isn't it?
Seems like it. Once time and life got separated in people's minds, time became this thing you had to use.
And use well.
Right. And that shift, that's the precondition for all our modern time struggles. Suddenly, there's immense pressure to use every second productively.
And then we beat ourselves up when we feel we've wasted it.
Exactly. Which drives that, alluring but often futile attempt to multitask.
Right.
Even the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, way back in 1887, he was observing people eating and reading stock market news at the same time.
So it's not new, but maybe just amplified now.
Absolutely. That constant underlying pressure leads to what Burkeman calls busyness.
Okay.
But it's not that delightful, productive busyness like in Richard Scarry's Busy Town, where everyone fits things in perfectly.
Right, where the pig firefighters get everything done.
Yeah. No, our busyness is rooted in this constant gnawing anxiety that our tasks just won't fit.
Okay.
And here's the kicker you highlighted in the material. Trying to get more done in less time. It just seems to generate more to do.
How so?
Well, think about Facebook. It efficiently tells you about events.
Right.
But then it reminds you of more events than you could possibly ever attend.
Right, yeah. Or email.
Exactly. Email creates a volume of messages that just wouldn't exist without it. The very tools we use to try and get on top of everything often just expand the size of the everything.
That's such a keen observation. It really resonates.
Yeah.
And it sounds like this whole quest for efficiency, especially through, the lure of convenience, can actually warp our relationship with time pretty profoundly.
It really can.
How does Burkeman illustrate that warping effect?
Well, he argues that industries identify our pain points, those little annoyances, the friction of daily life, like calling a taxi or finding your wallet.
Okay.
And then they offer to eliminate them. Think Uber, Apple Pay.
Yeah, makes things smooth.
Exactly. But Burkeman calls this smoothness a dubious virtue. He suggests it strips away the unsmooth textures of life.
Unsmoothed textures, what does that mean?
The little interactions, the effort, the things that actually nurture relationships and community. Like maybe interacting with your local Chinese takeaway owner. That simple act can kind of bind a neighborhood together.
Right. Or sending a physical birthday card versus an e-card.
Precisely. The e-card is convenient, sure, but it totally lacks the meaning embedded in the effort of buying, writing, mailing a physical card.
So like you pointed out for the text, it's not really the thought that counts, but the effort.
That's his argument. And convenience, viewed this way, often leads us to just stop engaging in valuable activities altogether because the easier option is there.
Which brings us right back to that initial startling truth, those 4,000 weeks.
Yeah.
It feels, as Burkeman puts it, absurdly, terrifyingly, insultingly short.
Yeah.
But you also pointed out that this stark reality, while maybe terrifying at first, it paradoxically holds the key to a more authentic way of being.
It does. It's a paradox.
What's the key to unlocking that?
It's what Burkeman beautifully calls the bright sadness of mortality.
But bright sadness.
Yeah. Facing death is, well, obviously unwelcome, but he argues it often forces a new and more honest relationship with time.
Okay, so not necessarily happier, but
realer, that's the word he uses. A bright sadness or stubborn gladness, maybe a sober joy. He shares a story about David Kane, who, after being near a shooting incident, gained this really powerful immediate sense that being alive is just happenstance and not one more day of it is guaranteed. It brings the sheer preciousness of life into sharp focus, undeniable focus.
This finitude, this reality that we just cannot do everything. That seems to be a major root cause of our procrastination, doesn't it?
It really does. We often put off the important things.
Why is that, according to Burkeman?
It's often because we refuse to accept that reality will always fall short of our perfectionist standards.
The perfectionism track.
Exactly. Our talents, our time, our control, they're limited. It means you definitely won't do a good enough job compared to that flawless version in our imagination.
Right. So we just don't start.
Pretty much. But the liberating message here, and something you might find really empowering in your own life, is this. Since you won't do a perfect job anyway, you might as well just make a start. Let go of that pressure. It's a self-imposed cage.
Speaking of the inability to fully commit, maybe to make that start, you flagged the example of Franz Kafka.
Kafka.
Arguably one of history's most famously indecisive figures.
Yeah.
How does his story exemplify this finitude avoidance?
Well, Kafka famously yearned to live more than one life, right? He wanted to be a respectable citizen, an intimate partner, and a dedicated writer, all at once.
Okay.
His 5-year, very on-again, off-again engagement with Felice Bauer, it mostly happened through letters.
Right, so not much face-to-face.
Very little, and this allowed him to cling to the possibility of intimacy without it actually competing head-on with his mania for work, as Burkeman calls it.
So he could keep the idea alive without the reality interfering.
Exactly. This Kafka-esque indecision is rooted in refusing to face the essential tension of finite choices. We have to choose.
And that's a magnified version of our own struggles with work, family, creative stuff.
I think so. That desire to keep all doors open, even if it means never truly stepping through one.
So if that's the case, then this modern fear we have of settling, in relationships or careers, it's actually misplaced.
Burkeman argues yes.
The book says we should definitely settle. That feels really counterintuitive.
It does, doesn't it? But the case he makes is compelling. The fantasy of the perfect partner or the perfect job, it often combines contradictory qualities.
Like what?
Like unlimited stability and unlimited excitement. Those rarely go hand in hand perfectly.
True.
So Burkeman argues that committing to a finite choice, like saying for better or worse in marriage, it fundamentally means closing off their fantasies of infinite possibility.
Giving up the what-ifs.
Right. Embracing what he calls the joy of missing out. JOMO, not FOMO.
Joy of missing out.
Yeah. And this conscious commitment, he suggests, can actually be unexpectedly calming.
Calming. How?
Because the anxiety falls away when there's really only one direction to travel. Forward into the consequences of your choice. You've made the decision, now you live it. It's about accepting limits as, paradoxically, a path to freedom.
That's a powerful shift in perspective. Okay, so connecting that to how we spend our actual days, Burkeman states that your experience of being alive consists of nothing other than the sum of everything to which you pay attention.
That's a core idea.
That really reframes distraction, doesn't it?
Absolutely. If you're paying attention to something you don't truly value, Burkeman says it's not an exaggeration to say that you're paying with your life.
Wow. Paying with your life.
Yeah. So distraction isn't just that momentary thing like a text message pulling you away.
Uh-huh.
Your whole job could potentially be a distraction if it's an investment of your attention, your limited life, in something less meaningful than other possibilities.
So it forces you to ask, where's my attention really going?
Exactly. What am I truly paying attention to?
And what's really fascinating here, and I think, many of us can relate to this, is that we often willingly give in to distraction.
We do.
Why? Why do we do that?
It's often a form of escape, isn't it? When work feels tough or life gets uncomfortable. Burkeman says you're eager for the slightest excuse to turn away. Distractions aren't just external forces pushing in.
Right. They're internal too?
Yes, they are, in a profound way, our own internal resistance to experiencing the uncomfortable reality of the present.
Resisting the present.
Yeah. The book mentions meditation teacher Shinzen Young's Do Nothing meditation,
Okay.
which trains us to just observe without trying to manipulate our experience or the world around us.
Let things be as they are.
Exactly. And the idea is that this reduces suffering by accepting the present moment instead of constantly trying to escape it or change it.
Okay. In a world that feels like it's just geared for speed and hurry, this whole discussion about attention makes me think about patience.
Patience, yes.
It feels like patience, ironically, becomes almost a superpower in this context. How so?
Well, it's defined in the book as the capacity to resist the urge to hurry, to allow things to take the time they take.
Okay. Resist the urge to hurry.
Think about the art history professor Jennifer Roberts at Harvard, whom you mentioned from the sources.
Right. The painting assignment.
Yes. She makes students look at one single painting for 3 hours straight.
3 hours.
Yeah. The not rushing is the assignment. And inevitably, students start seeing details, like the shape of a boy's ear echoing a squirrel's belly in a specific painting, Copley's boy with a squirrel, things you completely miss in a quick glance.
Right.
It teaches them that originality lies on the far side of unoriginality. You have to put in the time, the patient observation to see what's really there.
So that raises a question for, our own pursuits, like writing or creative work. How do we apply this patience? Does it mean we have to find these huge, uninterrupted blocks of time?
Not necessarily, no. Actually, Robert Boyce, who studied productive academics,
He found they often made writing a smaller part of their daily routine, writing in brief sessions, sometimes just 10 minutes, maybe up to 4 hours, and importantly, taking weekends off, religiously.
Interesting. Smaller chunks, consistently.
Yes, radical incrementalism, Burkeman called it. It meant they cultivated the patience to tolerate the fact that they probably wouldn't be producing very much on any individual day.
Okay. But the long-term result
Was much more over the long term. It even means learning to stop work when you're still full of energy.
Stop when you're on a roll. That sounds hard.
It is.
Yeah.
But it strengthens that muscle of patience, the ability to step away and know you can return again and again. It's about the long game.
Okay, this connects to something else. This quest for, total individual control over our schedules. The dream of the digital nomad on a beach somewhere.
Right, the ultimate freedom, supposedly.
It sounds alluring. But Burkeman suggests it can come at a real cost, especially in isolating us. He uses this fascinating kind of scary historical example from the Soviet Union. Yes, the time experiment. It's a stark warning.
Tell us about that.
Well, the Soviet Union tried to maximize factory efficiency by dividing workers into 5 different colored groups.
Okay.
And they had staggered weekends, so the factories could run continuously.
Makes sense from an efficiency standpoint.
Maybe, but it inadvertently destroyed the possibility of social life. Friends, husbands, wives, they could never socialize on the same day because their days off didn't line up.
Oh, wow. That's bleak.
It really is. And this failed experiment accidentally demonstrated something important. How much of the value of time comes not from the sheer quantity you have, but from whether you're in sync with the people you care about most.
So our schedules aren't just about us. They're deeply communal.
Exactly. We need that synchronicity.
And connecting this to the bigger picture then, it suggests that maybe surrendering to communal time, rather than constantly fighting for total individual control, can actually offer profound meaning.
That's definitely a key takeaway.
Could you give some examples of what that looks like in practice?
Sure. Think about the Swedish fika. that daily coffee and cake break. Everyone mingles. Hierarchy doesn't matter as much in that moment. It's seen as crucial for workplace communication, for conviviality, just connecting.
Right.
Or think about the sense of shared purpose you get from losing yourself in a community choir, or working in sync with others at a food cooperative, like Burkeman describes doing.
Okay.
He notes that those shared rhythm experiences can feel deeper than the connection I have with some of my real friends.
Hey, Berber, really?
Yeah. There's something powerful in that shared action, that synchrony. There's even evidence in sports. Rival sprinters like Usain Bolt and Tyson Gay, they subconsciously synchronize their steps when racing near each other. It actually increases efficiency, but it also creates a shared rhythm.
Fascinating.
Berkman suggests synchronicity can be like a portal to another dimension, to that sacred place where the boundaries of the self grow fuzzy and time seems not to exist.
Wow. Okay. All of this brings us to a really pervasive modern mindset when you pointed out from the material, the when I finally mind.
Yes. The deferred life plan.
This is such a common trap, isn't it?
It absolutely is. So many people live this way, believing that, when I finally get my workload under control, or when I finally clear my inbox,
Then I can relax.
and the life I was always meant to be living can finally begin.
Right. Always putting the real living off until later.
Exactly. And this way of thinking, it treats the present solely as a pathway to some superior future state, which makes the present itself inherently unsatisfying.
Yeah, you're never actually there.
Right. As the philosopher Alan Watts noted, living like this is arguably insane, yet Burkeman points out it's inculcated in us early in life, always deferred gratification, always waiting for later.
And this when I finally mindset, it even extends to parenting, leading to what Burkeman calls the causal catastrophe. What's that?
It's the belief that the rightness of how we raise our children is judged only by the kind of adults they turn into.
Okay, so childhood is just preparation.
Exactly. It ends up sapping childhood of any intrinsic value by treating it only as a training ground for adulthood. But as the Russian philosopher Alexander Herzen wrote, grieving his drowned son, he asserted, a child's purpose is to be a child.
To be a child.
Yeah. Nature doesn't disdain what only lives for a day. It pours the whole of itself into each moment. Life's bounty is in its flow. Later is too late.
Wow. Later is too late. That's powerful. A reminder to value the present moment for ourselves and for our kids.
Absolutely.
So the sort of unpalatable reality here then is that our life isn't really leading towards some future moment of truth where everything is solved and perfect.
Doesn't seem like it.
Instead, the moment of truth is always now.
Always now.
This sounds terrifying, maybe. But Burkeman suggests contemplating the massive indifference of the universe can actually be oddly consoling. He calls it cosmic insignificance therapy.
Yeah. What does that even mean? How is that consoling?
Well, it reminds us how little we truly matter on a grand cosmic time scale, which sounds depressing, but surprisingly, it can feel like putting down a heavy burden.
Okay. How so?
It liberates us from this unrealistic definition of a life well spent that demands, deeply impressive accomplishments or leaving some lasting impact on the world.
Takes the pressure off needing to be great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It allows us to truly see that preparing nutritious meals for your family or writing a novel that only moves a few people, that matters just as much.
Because it's your actual life.
Right. Your small acts have intrinsic value because they are your life, your 4,000 weeks unfolding.
And what's really profound here is how this perspective can lead to abandoning hope, but not as despair, as liberation.
Yes, exactly.
Why is that the case? Especially now when it often feels like everything is screwed. Climate change, pandemics.
Well, Burkeman cites the environmental activist Derek Jensen. When people ask him how he stays hopeful, he says he doesn't.
He doesn't stay hopeful. Nope. And he argues that's a good thing, because hope often means placing faith in something outside ourselves. It means disavowing your own capacity to change things, waiting for rescue.
Okay, so giving up that kind of hope
is to re-inhabit the power that you actually have, right here, right now.
I see.
It means abandoning the hope that somehow this isn't really it, or that one day you'll finally feel truly confident or fully prepared.
You stop waiting for that feeling.
Right, because the terrible eventuality you might have feared. Burkeman says it has already happened, and yet here you are, still alive, you're already in it.
So it's not despair.
Not at all. It's meant to be an energizing surge of motivation. Motivation to roll up your sleeves and start work on what's gloriously possible instead, right now, with what you have.
That's a really powerful and practical reframe.
Okay.
And to help you, our listener, maybe apply some of these big concepts to your own finite life, Burkeman offers 5 questions.
Right. And the point isn't to find immediate perfect answers.
No. It's more to live the questions, as he puts it, to start grasping the reality of your situation.
So let's dive into them. The first question to consider for yourself is this. Where in your life or your work are you currently pursuing comfort when what's called for is a little discomfort?
Comfort versus discomfort.
Yeah. And he challenges us to ask, does this choice diminish me or enlarge me?
Diminish or enlarge?
And the advice is pretty clear. Choose uncomfortable enlargement over comfortable diminishment. Lean into the growth, even if it's harder.
That's a great gut check. Okay, and the second question you highlighted is equally piercing. Are you holding yourself to and judging yourself by standards of productivity or performance that are impossible to meet?
This ties right back to that perfectionism trap we talked about.
Right. So what would you do differently if you truly grasped you could never, ever get everything important done? What would change?
Exactly. Really sit with that. And the third question challenges our need for external validation.
Okay.
In what ways have you been unwilling to be an amateur?
Unwilling to be an amateur. Like needing to look like you know it all.
Sort of. Many of us spend adulthood trying to justify our existence to, outside authorities, seeking their approval, bosses, society, whatever. But the truth is, as Burkeman observes, no one really cares what we're doing with our life, except us.
Ouch. But also, freeing.
Very freeing. The real peace of mind comes not from finally getting that validation, but from realizing it wouldn't bring lasting security anyway.
It's quite liberating, yeah. And the fourth question builds right on that. In which areas of life are you still holding back until you feel like you know what you're doing?
Waiting until you feel ready or qualified.
Right.
But the liberating truth here, he says, is that pretty much everyone is just winging it all the time.
Really, everyone.
In work, marriage, parenting, government, people are figuring it out as they go. This realization is powerful because if total authority is never going to arrive, you might as well not wait any longer to give such activities your all. Just jump in.
Just do it, basically.
Yeah. And finally, the fifth one. A deeply profound question to maybe wrap up your reflection. How would you spend your days differently if you didn't care so much about seeing your actions reach fruition?
Not caring about the end result.
Or at least not being solely focused on it. Think about the astronomer working at SETI, listening for signals that may never come.
Right. Or the example of the father-son team cataloging ancient forests.
Exactly. Dedicating their life to projects they know they won't see completed. We are all, in a sense, like those medieval stonemasons, adding a few more bricks to a cathedral whose completion we know we'll never see.
Wow.
The cathedral's still worth building all the same. The work itself has value.
So as we wrap up this deep dive then, the core messages you've really helped us unpack here, it isn't about figuring out how to get everything done.
No.
Or achieving total mastery over time. It's more about what? Letting go.
Letting go of our resistance. Resistance to the fundamental reality of our finite existence and the messy, unpredictable nature of life itself. Accepting the limits. It reminds me of Carl Jung. He gave advice once to a correspondent on how to live.
Oh, yeah. What did he say?
He simply said, "One lives as one can. There is no single, definite way." His practical advice. Quietly do the next and most necessary thing.
The next necessary thing, not the grand plan.
Exactly. It's not about having it all figured out or needing objective certainty. It's about acting with conviction in the present moment, with the time you actually have.
And on that note, here's maybe a final thought for you, our listener, to chew on. Something to carry with you from this deep dive. Think about how the very concept of time saved through all our technology and convenience has paradoxically made us feel more rushed and impatient.
It really has.
So what might it look like for you to consciously reintroduce a little bit of friction, maybe some inconvenience back into your life? Not, for its own sake, but maybe as a deliberate act, an act of re-engaging with those unsmooth textures we talked about, the things that might actually be nurturing meaning and connection in ways you didn't even realize you were missing. Something to think about.